All right, today I'm going to be answering the alumni questions for Moore County High School. Saw it on Facebook, and I really feel like, I could help somebody maybe that was in the same position I was when I was at Moore County. So I'll be answering the alumni questions. Name, Thomas Darin Reese. I went to Moore County and graduated in 2010. What is my career? I would say that my career is actually just engineering. Anything mechanical engineering, even though when I first graduated college, I actually was working as an electrical engineer, but I graduated as a mechanical engineer with a concentration in HVAC and a minor in math. Basically, when you're an engineer, you can work in so many different fields. You can do a lot of different things, from literal engineering to just kind of management, to you can even go into business after you get an engineering degree. A lot of people actually start their own business after they become an engineer. And some people even go on to teach. All right, what kind of education or training did I receive? I went to Tennessee Tech University after I graduated high school. I was able to kind of jumpstart Tennessee Tech because I did do the Motlow program while I was in high school. So for my junior and senior year, I was able to do dual enrollment. So, I went to Motlow for some classes, and then I, finished up at high school. What was your degree in? I received a mechanical engineering degree. What I did was, when I first started, I didn't declare. You just declared basic engineering. So you got classes you can take that you're going to need for every one of the engineering disciplines anyway. So I did that first, and then I went to all the different disciplines and I talked to the professors, and I tried to get an idea. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an HVAC engineer. I wanted to design, HVAC. I wanted to design that. So I said, okay, well, that involves chemistry, so I'll talk to chemistry department. Well, that involves, mechanical, so I talk to them. And then it also involves electricity, so, I talk to them. And after talking to the professors, mechanical engineering is the one engineering that I will say that you can literally do anything with. It has aspects of all engineering into one, so I chose mechanical engineering. How long did it take you to become a mechanical engineer? Okay, so the way that I did it was, it's a 4-year degree, but I did almost 2 years worth of co-oping within that 4 years. Most of my summers were spent doing co-ops, and then some of my other semesters were also spent doing co-ops. So I actually took me 5 years to graduate college, but I did get a significant amount of a co-op or internship throughout my college, which also helped me pay for college. That's a very nice thing. When you're doing engineering, there's plenty of jobs out there for you to do co-ops. Briefly describe what you do in your job. Okay, that depends on, if you're an engineer, that really depends on, who you're working for and what you're doing. We'll start in college. So in college, I did a lot of manufacturing co-op jobs. I co-opted for Linux International, and I worked with them, and I was a manufacturing engineer. Then I was ergonomic engineer for the manufacturing, and then I did value stream management. So literally became a value stream manager. So on a product line, I was managing the product line as they were making the refrigeration equipment. Then I graduated college and I went to work for Trane. When I went to work for Trane, I was a test engineer. So instead of me just, basically being on the analytical side of manufacturing, and every now and then we got to do certain tasks, but safety was a key thing while you're a co-op. But you got to do certain tasks to do time studies and stuff like that. But when it comes to working, my first, working outside of some sort of bounds was when I went to work for Trane. So while I was at Trane, I was a test engineer, and I worked for the quality group. But basically, I would design, I would install test equipment, and I would design the parameters for the test. I would program the equipment. I would maintain the equipment, and then I would also train operators to use the equipment. So I was involved in every aspect of every project when it comes to, the test equipment and how we tested air conditioning units for Train. By far, what I would consider my dream job, and I had it right out of college, and I loved what I did. It was absolutely amazing, but it was not in Tennessee. It was in Georgia. And then me and my wife decided to move back to Tennessee. And when I moved back to Tennessee, I ended up getting a job at Arnold Air Force Base as a fire system engineer. Now, granted, I knew nothing about fire systems, but I was an engineer. As an engineer, you can learn on the job very well if you have a fitting degree in mechanical engineering. It's very fitting for fire system engineering. So it took me a little bit longer than it did at Train to catch on to the fire, because it was all new. But it was interesting to do something different. Would I sit here and say that I saw myself being a fire system engineer? Absolutely not. And I still kind of hold on to, I still love HVAC, but now HVAC can be a hobby for me instead of my day job. So that's always interesting to have hobbies and to keep things you're passionate about. What do I love about my job? All right, so for my current job, what I love about my current job is the time I get for my family, and the time I get for fitness. When it comes to working at the base, they actually have their own gym that you can work out at if you're a contractor. They respect your family time. A lot of private companies out there do not respect your family time. A lot of manufacturing companies do not respect your family time. They expect you to be at work in a significant amount of more hours than is reasonable. When I was working at Train, when I worked at Lennox, I was working 50 hours a week, easy. And of course, I didn't have anything else to do, being a co-op like that. But when I started working for Train, I was working 60 to 65 hours a week, easy. And now that I'm working at the base, I'm working around 40 hours a week, 80 hours in 2 weeks. And when they ask for overtime, it's very rare, and it don't bother you, because they don't overreach. So they respect your family time, and I do appreciate that about my job. What do you hate about your job, or what is the downside? Let's not say the word hate, because if you're out there making money, providing for your family, you got to appreciate at least that portion of whatever job that you have. What are some downsides? Some downsides for working at Lennox. It wasn't home. When you're young, you want to get out, and I did enjoy, finding out, could I live on my own? Could I be independent? Did I really need the Reese name to be able to work in my area? I did not. So it was awesome getting out, getting to know myself, and knowing that I can do it. And so that was what I enjoyed about getting out. But also, after a while, it's not home. Georgia was not my home. So the downside about being at Lennox was it was in South Georgia. I had to drive 6 hours to get back to the house, get back to family. Very similar when I started working for Train after I graduated. It took me, 6 hours to get back home. So what was the downside? It wasn't home. And the downside also at Train was I was overworked a significant amount. I asked for hour reductions. I asked for a lot of things and never received them. They always just wanted to give me more and more money. At the end of the day, I chose to leave that job, less hours of work versus more money. I didn't care about making more money. I'd rather have my time back. My time is more valuable than the money that you can try to throw at me. What's the downside of my job currently? So at the base, I would say the biggest downside is once you enter the base, you don't have rights. I mean, a lot of our rights, not to get off on a tangent, are degrading before our eyes anyway, and a lot of our constitutional rights are pretty much gone. But once you enter that base, you don't have any. So there's that feeling of you're there, but then again, you're being allowed to be there, so to speak. The commander can say at any moment, "Hey, contractor's not allowed in for any emergency reason, whatever they have." They can make their own rules, and you can't do certain things out there that you can do in the private sector. You have to report literally everything. The way that they put things out is anybody with any life situation or any hardship would have to report literally everything about yourself. You can't go on vacation without reporting to them. It's very intrusive. So the government is very intrusive. That's the thing I dislike the most. Vacation time, even though you get a lot of time for your family and they respect your time, you earn very few vacation hours, and you have to earn vacation, which makes no sense. Vacation is an entitlement. It's not something you earn. You're given vacation. So it makes no sense to earn something like that. But they make you earn a few hours every pay period, which makes no sense. I actually had more time off at Train working 65 hours a week than I have at the base in 4 years of working at the base. It's insane, but it works out that way. I get less days off at the base than I did at Train. Had 15 days, and that did not include any sick days, and that did not include any hours I went to the dentist or anything. Vacation was vacation. It wasn't sick time. Whereas at the base, if you're sick 4 days out of the year, or nowadays, if you have any symptoms, you're not allowed to come in. You have to burn your vacation hours. You go to the dentist, you got to burn vacation. So definitely the biggest downside. Number 8, would a person starting out in your career field expect to earn? What would a person in your career expect to earn? The market has changed so much since I started engineering. When I started my job in 2015, I had companies asking me what made me feel like I was worth more than $40,000 a year, which I felt very disrespected in that interview. A couple interviews went that way. The same year, 2015, I got an offer for 55 out of Arkansas, and I got an offer for 65 out of Georgia. So I took the 65 and I went with that. That was 7 years ago now. So I'm sure if you're starting out, I mean, you should be expecting 75,000 starting out at this point. I would definitely negotiate. I negotiated every contract I've ever had. 55 and 65 was not their first offer. That was actually their third offer. Put your resume out there. Let them know that you are an employee they want, and negotiate your worth. Number 9, are you doing the same job that you planned on doing when you graduated? Absolutely not. If not, when did you change your mind, and what made you decide to change? Okay, I'd never changed my mind in the sense of what I want to do. I still enjoy HVAC. I still would love to design HVAC. The logistics are not there financially. The money that you make designing HVAC systems is significantly less than manufacturing. So I chose to go into manufacturing because I still enjoyed HVAC in the sense of manufacturing. So I went to Lennox, which did refrigeration systems, and then I went to Train, which did commercial, air conditioning equipment. In both cases, I felt like home. They still was around HVAC, but it was manufacturing. That was fine. It was more product engineering, which was another goal of mine. I was like, well, I either want to design the systems or I want to design the product. So I was still right in my home. What made me change to work at the base? I decided to come home. That's the end of it. I decided to come home. Family was more important than driving a career. A career without family or a career without a marriage is just an empty life. So I decided to come back home. It was nothing to do with what made me change what I felt like doing as a passion. I still enjoy HVAC, but I just learned over time that reaching for me reaching my dream job by the age of 25, it didn't fulfill the things that you thought it would fulfill. So coming home and being with family is way more important than, you know, some career that I'm passionate about. But I'm still in my career. I'm still engineering. So for me, I don't feel like I changed my career as much as I just changed jobs, changed what I do. All right, number 10. Did you have to work your way up the ladder to get your job? And if so, where did you start? Briefly describe how you got to where you are. Okay. Yes and no. I want to be as blunt as possible on this one. Yes and no. The way that I would say that I worked up the ladder would be the fact that I co-opted during college. So I didn't start from scratch. I was able to start from almost 2 years of experience under my belt, which really helped me kind of start up the ladder a little bit. But when you start a career, no matter pretty much where you start, unless you just get lucky, you're going to start at the bottom of the totem pole no matter what. So you're going to start in a job that nobody else wants, because that's why that job is open. That job is open because the other people that worked there didn't want that job. All right. So when I started at Train, I started a job that over the last 4 years had 6 people working that same job as, one person, so the turnover was insane for that role. And then I almost did it for 4 years. So, I felt like that was a major accomplishment. It was a burnout job is what most people call it. But a lot of times if you're working a burnout job, that experience and, everything that you gain from that burnout job just makes you so much more appealing to an employer. Most of the people that worked that burnout job as a test engineer at Train, they went on to be really big figureheads within the Train company. You can really move up the company once you work that job and did it well. And I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't have offers to move up within that company. I just didn't want to go to Wisconsin. That was the offer, was product engineering in Wisconsin, and I considered that just another portion of my dream job, and I didn't want to go to Wisconsin. So I would say working 65 hours a week, that felt like the bottom of the rung. But once I did that burnout job, I pretty much, when I put in my resume for working at the base, I felt like I had made it at that point. And the base has been just it's been a really good experience, a good job to have. So at this point, I feel like I've made it. I'm no longer climbing a ladder. So you can take that for what it's worth. All right, last statement here says tell students anything else that you think they might want to know about your career. So I would say the biggest thing about engineering is, if you graduate as a mechanical engineer, that doesn't mean that you're going to design something. It doesn't mean that you can't do other things. Like I said, I graduated as a mechanical engineer, started working as an electrical engineer when I first came out. Now I'm working as a civil technically because I'm working as a fire system engineer. So don't feel like you're in a certain lane. You're supposed to be relatively in a lane when you graduate as a mechanical engineer, because you're expected to work within your discipline, but really you need to work within yourself. Know yourself. I knew a lot about electricity. I was really good at circuits in college. So when I started working for Train, I had no problem, working as, that electrical engineering position. It didn't bother me a bit. So you work within yourself when you're an engineer. I mean, if you want to teach, you can teach. If you want to start your own business, you can start your own business. I know a lot of engineers that graduated with me that are now just some of them started their own business. Some of them are, big managers within business. So you can do literally anything when you become an engineer, pretty much. So sky's the limit when you're an engineer. The other key thing that I would tell you is really kind of my journey with career. I was so fixed on that my career, I had to do what I was passionate about. I had to do HVAC. My co-op and my first job were both in the HVAC field, and I did enjoy those jobs. But it was still empty at the end of the day when we couldn't be around family. So I will say that yes, it's good to go out, become independent, but don't be afraid to come back home. Don't be afraid to come back and be with your family, choosing your family over your career. It's not you giving up on your career. I'm still an engineer, so technically my career is still fine. Don't be afraid to do different things. Just because you get a mechanical engineering degree doesn't mean that's what you have to do for the rest of your life. You can do different things. Life is a long journey, so just keep moving in the direction that you feel is right. That's what I always did. And the main thing that I would say about me is I always went out and asked everybody that was either in that situation or had been in that situation to get just as much input as I could about making a decision, and then I would decide to do what's best for me at that moment. That doesn't mean I always, did what they thought I should do or what most of them did, but to me, that has helped me make, I guess, better decisions than just making them on my own. So if I had any advice, that would be my advice.